not only are you letting them disrespect you, but you're also disrespecting yourself for allowing them to treat you the way they're treating you. You gotta realize boundaries are your self-respect. And if you don't have any self-respect, you don't have any boundaries. And you don't have boundaries, you don't have self-respect. You can't control other people's actions, but you can control yours. If you lack self-control, you lack self-discipline. That is why self-discipline is important. Not in your life for a reason. They cheated for a reason, and they choose not to be with you for a reason. And it's because they just don't want to. Okay, regardless if it's a valid or invalid reason, a good or a bad reason, a reason that you understand, they are not with you for a reason. And that reason most of the time is because they just choose not to. And if you don't know why they don't want to be with you, some things you're not going to understand. And I wish I kept on just feeding myself that, because even sometimes I mess up and I'm like, well, I don't understand, and not everything you're meant to understand, okay, baby? And that is okay, and that is perfectly fine, okay? Because you're not gonna know everything. Even scientists don't know everything, and they switch up sometimes. So it's like I said, you're not gonna know everything, you're not gonna understand everything, okay? But you know what you can understand, why you do the things that you do, and why you make the decisions that you make, okay? With that being said, start setting boundaries for yourself and whatnot, okay? Because oh my gosh, that hair. When they do decide to quote unquote want you all of a sudden, aka get bored or run out of options, or maybe realize, hey, I made a mistake and maybe I don't want girl B and I really just want to go back to girl A. Or if, like I said, they just need some excitement, or sometimes they just listen to a voice in their head and they're like, well, maybe you did make the wrong choice, even though they probably made the right choice of not being with you for obvious reasons. But they're like, well, maybe I should like see this through again. And they come back, okay? But that doesn't mean they're back in it unless you let them, okay? And this is where building boundaries go, okay? So we're literally right back at square one with the boundary. Oh, yeah, I just saw a bug fly by. Anyways, now we're back at square one with boundaries. Boundaries, you gotta realize boundaries are your self-respect. And if you don't have any self-respect, you don't have any boundaries. And you don't have boundaries, you don't have self-respect, okay? And this can vary depending on what you've been through, how you see the world, your perspective, etc., morals, values, etc. Okay? Your boundaries are your boundaries for a reason. Your boundaries are not gonna look like girl A, B, C, D, E, F, G he's already been with, okay? Because those are different people, okay? So that doesn't make your boundaries invalid or too much if you don't think they're too much, okay? But that does not mean do not be reasonable, but that means your boundaries hold power, hold meaning to you. And it's not supposed to hold meaning and power to everyone else that don't get it, because they're not you. And some people don't get you. Some people do get you, but not everyone will get you, okay? And you need boundaries, y'all. Boundaries are so important. I can't stress this enough. And boundaries fit in everyday life with everything. Depending on how certain people talk to you, how you let certain people treat you, how nice you're going to be. Not saying, oh, sometimes you need to be a bitch, but just saying, hey, it's okay to say no sometimes, which usually I don't really struggle with. Like I've said yes to something I didn't want to say yes to, like less than 5 times this year. Compared to me doing that like 50 times or more a year, that is a significant difference, okay? So y'all gotta realize it's not gonna change like overnight, because even as someone who used to say yes all the time and literally is slowly, gradually over the years has started to say no and be okay with telling people no, it still takes time. It still takes time, and it still takes energy and all of that good stuff. So with all of that being said, everything, it's a learning lesson, okay? You're still a work in progress. Anyways, y'all, with that being said, have boundaries, okay? You use boundaries in everything in life, even without realizing, like I said, whether that comes to relationships, not even just like romantic ones. It could be a sexual relationship, depending on how you are. Girl, that's your business, not mine. It could be family relationships, like with the sister, brother, mom, father, etc., auntie, cousin, etc. It could be it could be in work, certain like boundaries for work, or school, depending on how your school schedule is and how school life is for you. It could even be boundaries for a certain schedule, or personal boundaries, or religionist slash spiritual boundaries. Like, you have boundaries for every aspect of your life without realizing it. And if you don't have self-respect, you realize that you don't have any boundaries. So it's really important to, if you don't have any, go ahead and get some, okay? Because that's where your self-respect starts building. And once you start following those boundaries and living up to them and being like, okay, no, I am not gonna, no, you're not gonna text me past 10 p.m. No, because you don't call me at all, you don't text me at all until 10 p.m. So we're not gonna talk. Nope. And once you live up to that, you're gonna feel how much self-respect you have for yourself. Think about if you were to realize somebody only, like I said, only texts you and calls you at 10 p.m., like after 10 p.m., and all during the day, they're not busy, no work, no nothing. Even if they do have little things, they can still just send a hey. We have our phones everywhere, and it's incorporated into our lives, so there's no reason to not text or call, even if it's a hi or just a checking in. And yeah, like, I feel as if you always have your phone, so there's really no excuse. So with that being said, if they only text you past 10 p.m. and at 10 p.m., they're obviously wanting a certain thing. And if not wanting a certain thing, they just do it because they're bored, meaning they're not taking you serious. So either way, even if they don't want a certain thing, they're just doing it for fun and for boredom. And unless you're doing it for that same reason, there's no point if you want something serious and then entertaining that, and them only entertaining you for fun intent and nothing serious. See what I mean? So think about how you would feel if you were continuously entertaining that, knowing that they don't want anything serious with you. Not only are you letting them disrespect you, but you're also disrespecting yourself for allowing them to treat you the way they're treating you and letting them disrespect you. Because I feel like we don't take enough accountability nowadays, which is something I am very heavy on, accountability. Because if you don't take accountability for actions and whatnot, you're not gonna grow, because you have this victim complex where you think it's everyone's fault except yours, meaning everyone needs to grow, everyone's a bad, terrible person, but you're not looking at your flaws. Not saying we should all focus on all the bad, but victim complex is where you don't focus on any of your bad, okay? And you only see yourself as this good quality person, which is not true. I feel as if we're all complex people in some way and form, meaning you can't play victim complex, okay? Obviously, in some situations, yes, you are a victim, okay? Yes, you are a victim, but victim complex is a mindset of where you feel as if the whole world is basically against you and everyone does wrong except for you, and not taking accountability. So we've already went over boundaries, and now we're talking about accountability, okay? So take accountability, y'all. I can't stress this enough. Accountability. Okay, next thing, discipline. This is the last thing we're gonna talk about, y'all. Discipline, self-discipline specifically, so important. We all have discipline in our life in some way, shape, or form, y'all. Even without you realizing it, you're like, girl, what are you talking about? How is that true? Y'all, with school, there's discipline within getting to class at a certain time, or work, discipline when you don't get to work on time and whatnot, or if you're not doing your job correctly, etc. What's another thing? At home, if you don't do your chores, discipline, okay? Discipline's even within yourself. There's discipline, knowing you shouldn't do something and then just living up to it and not doing the thing you know you shouldn't do, or even with your diet and food, discipline. So self-discipline self-discipline's a whole nother thing, because again, all these things are about self, right? So working on yourself, by the way, these are 3 things you need, girl. 3 things. With self-discipline, it's everything. You have everything if you have self-discipline. You have everything if you have self-discipline, because you are disciplined without the needance of others, which is something not everybody has. Once you realize, and y'all, my camera cut off. I forgot where I was, but anyways, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish this up because my camera's about to die. Y'all, with all that being said, self-discipline is literally just another word for self-control. If you don't have self-discipline, you don't have self-control. Control is everything, okay? Because what's the one thing people say you can't control, but you can't control? You can't control other people's actions, but you can control yours. If you lack self-control, you lack self-discipline. That is why self-discipline is important. Give you a ton of examples, and I might pop even more up on the screen of when you will need self-control / self-discipline. But it is important because you're not going to thrive in life if you don't have self-discipline, because you can't push yourself to do stuff even if you don't want to do it. That means you need other people to do it. And what's one thing that you know that I know? You were born alone, and guess what? You're gonna die alone. So you won't always have somebody there. Obviously you will have support, but people, you cannot guarantee people will always be there, but you can always guarantee that you will be there. Like, well, how do I know this? Girl, like I said, you were born alone and you're gonna die alone. So you'll always have yourself. So you can't always need a support system, which it's good having a support system for discipline, but you also need to be able to have self-control on your own. Because if you can't have self-control, you can have nothing. Because you lose your mind to little things that you don't need, and that gives you cheap dopamine.